In chess, every move counts. In emergency situations, every second does. Both worlds demand strategy under pressure, reading patterns, anticipating threats, and sometimes sacrificing the right piece to win the game. But unlike in chess, in the ER, the stakes aren't points or pride, they're people. I'm Dr. Venk, emergency physician at Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, husband and father to 3 incredible boys. I'm also a chess player and have been studying chess in my free time for several years. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a grandmaster at chess, but I am very accomplished in emergency medicine. Today, I want to show you how the lessons of chess have made me a better, calmer, and more strategic emergency physician, even in the chaos. Stick around to the end of the video. I'm going to have a downloadable summary of at least the lessons I've learned. Hopefully they can help you. In chess, the opening sets the tone. When playing as white, I have spent years learning the king's pawn e4 opening. The main line in chess is the best move sequence for each side as determined by chess computer engines. Depending on how my opponent moves in response, I have prepared about 12 moves before we go unscripted. In my experience with chess, you can't win in the opening, but you can lose. Lose fast and lose big if you're careless or unprepared. The same is true when a patient rolls in and is very sick, whether it be from traumatic injuries, cardiac arrest, severe infection, stroke, or really anything else. Your first few moves matter most. Getting yourself and your team moving strategically and quickly is essential. In chess, the initial goal is to fight for control of the center of the board. In the resuscitation room, we fight to control airway, breathing, and circulation. In chess, getting pieces into the flow of the game is known as developing them. Our entire team in the emergency department needs to get into the flow too. You develop your pieces, physicians, nurses, pharmacists, technicians, respiratory therapists, and many others. You castle early in chess, protecting your king. Also, I find myself checking before I make any move if my pieces are safe and if my king is going to be safe. In the resuscitation room, we also focus from the beginning on maximizing safety for the patient and the staff. This means double-checking important information like allergies before we take action. It means we wear protective gear to keep ourselves safe. A strong opening isn't about aggression. It's about teamwork, activity, and safety. In both chess and medicine, control beats chaos. In the middle game, the board is unpredictable. After each side has moved just 5 times, there are over 69 trillion different configurations of pieces on the board. Pieces have been traded, pawns have been lost. Every decision truly has rippling effects for how the game will unfold. Similarly, in caring for very sick or injured people, the way things will unfold after the initial steps is often unpredictable. Your patient's oxygen levels may suddenly fail. You may find hidden bleeding. They may have an allergic reaction, or they could be panicking because they're anxious or overwhelmed by the situation and need reassurance. Yet, within the unpredictability, there are patterns that can be seen. Pattern recognition in this stage of the resuscitation is invaluable. Trying to imagine how things may unfold, such as, what will I do if the CAT scan shows? And what if my patient needs more pain medication? What can I do then? If this person needs to go to the operating room, have I done everything I can to prepare them for that? Thinking about things like this ahead of time and having a strategy mapped out is very helpful. In chess, I find myself also trying to identify patterns. Patterns in how my opponent is working to attack me. Patterns in how I could gain an advantage on the board. I try to consider what I will do in different situations, imagining several moves ahead wherever I can. The other key piece in the middle game goes back to safety. Trying to see the traps that your opponent has set for you and making sure you don't fall into them is key. Of course, in the ER, the opponent is nature and the system of care itself. So we need to be anticipating what are the hazards that can happen if I choose one medication versus another. Have I done what I can to avoid these complications? What are these hazards in the system of providing care for this patient that I need to be aware of. Certain units in the hospital, for example, may not be able to take a patient who is on a heart monitor or who needs a ventilator or CPAP at night. Some units may not be able to take a patient who is aggressive or dangerous. Also, nuances in the type of people who are involved. When a person, for example, comes to the emergency department and has an obstruction in their intestines, depending on what is causing that obstruction, there are different surgeons and non-surgeon teammates that need to be activated. Anticipation of these issues improves the overall care of the patient. Pattern recognition, pitfall recognition, and thinking several moves ahead becomes everything in the middle game. Every experienced physician develops a bored sense. That's the gut feeling that something's not right. And the more experienced physicians often can recognize more patterns and pitfalls than those who are newer. They may see hidden dangers in an ECG, in the way the labs are lining up, or pitfalls that are subtle on an X-ray. Similarly, in chess, more experienced players identify more patterns and pitfalls and identify them quicker than novices. The best players and the best physicians don't necessarily move faster. They see the situation or the board itself more clearly under pressure. They see the hidden possibilities for good and for bad. Before we move on to the final section of this video, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to my show, and drop a comment with any kind of reflection you have. Maybe you're in healthcare and you have a hobby that you relate to your work. Maybe you're in some other industry and you relate your hobbies. I'd love to hear that. Do you play chess? Do you want to play chess with me? Put that information in there or reach out to me. Thank you for staying. And remember, at the very end, there will be a QR code that you can use to download a summary of all of this content. Okay, let's get going. Every game ends. Every ER encounter ends. Some with a win, some with a stalemate, some... In emergency medicine, the end game might be stabilizing this patient for the ICU, or delivering bad news with compassion. Usually the end game is not as confusing. There are very few pieces left on the board, very few moves left to make in the ER. What is inevitable becomes clearer as each move is played or each moment passes. Just like with openings, the end game rewards foresight. Chess players spend loads of time studying different checkmating patterns, understanding how different piece combinations can seal the deal and trap and mate the opposing king. How can two knights and a king, for example, take down a lone king? Or how can a rook and a king take down a king? What if both sides have a single rook? Hundreds upon hundreds and more endgames are meticulously analyzed and learned. In the ER, similarly, we practice communicating with the inpatient team to take our patients. We practice explaining what has unfolded to patients themselves and their families. We practice and study how to discharge people home safely and optimally. In the hospital, have we selected the right place for them? Did we convey all the needed information? Have we done all that could be expected of us in the ER before moving them? Have the nurses communicated effectively with each other? And much, much more. You win because of preparation and understanding, good documentation, clear communication, teamwork that's already in motion. And sometimes we still lose, no matter how perfectly we play. I remember early in my career, I had a patient who died while we were working as a team to save their life after a car accident. In the time that followed, we analyzed the case several times. Once immediately afterwards, we debriefed as a group to discuss our observations, our emotions, and to heal together. Then later in classrooms and conference rooms, we analyzed the same case with others who weren't there to try and understand what else we could have done or what we could have avoided that might have saved their life. We got stronger. We reinforced what we did well, and although there wasn't any obvious errors, we discussed ways that may have been improved to consider for future patients. When I lost my first competitive chess match with another dedicated player, I remember in my sadness that they were so kind that they offered to go over the game with me. We took time together. That player, who was much more experienced than me, walked me through what they saw on the board at different stages in the game, how they analyzed my moves against theirs, and gave me advice on how to play better for the next time. and what else I could read or study in between. Then I took my move sheet where I recorded all the moves both sides made, and I took that home. I entered all those moves into a chess engine, and it too showed me strengths and weaknesses in my game. I grew stronger. I reinforced the many moves I played well. I spotlighted the ones that were not so good. In chess, you reset the board and play again. In emergency medicine, of course, you cannot go back and try to save somebody's life again. But you learn, you grow, you return for your next shift, you return for your next patient. The parallels between chess and emergency medicine aren't just poetic, they're practical. Chess teaches pattern recognition, risk management, and emotional regulation. Medicine teaches empathy, resilience, and adaptability. Put the two together, and you get something powerful. A mind that can think like a strategist, and a heart that can heal like a human. So next time you're faced with chaos, remember, every great move starts with seeing the whole board. And in the ER, every life you save starts the same way.